Hello, everybody. It is good to be back in a place I have never been before. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to King's Chaos. We are back. It's been a few months since we've done this, but here we are. We are back with King's Chaos Season 2 now in studio. That's right. We are live at 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. I am your host, as always, Kyng-Pin, aka the parentheses of Spades, and I am joined today with a special guest, Ian Hagen. How are you today?
Good.
That's awesome. So tell us a little about yourself. What are you? So today we're here to talk about albums and stuff. And but other than that, what are you majoring in? What?
I'm a freshman and I am majoring in visual arts.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so today we're going to talk about albums and stuff. As I explained before, I did a show with Mike Foley a few weeks ago. And we talked about albums covers, and yeah, that's what we did. We talked about what made one lackluster, what made one great, and today we're going to do that. But we are going to be doing it. We're going to be doing it with specific albums and stuff. I will be talking about Ice Nine's "The Silver Scream" from 2018, and my guest here, Ian, will be talking about
the self-titled album of 21 Pilots, released in 2009.
Awesome. So would you like to go first and describe what the album looks like to those listening who can't see it right now?
All right. So I'll give you some facts. The album cover was actually designed by a friend of the singers, John Retztat, and it must have been used using like pen or Sharpie or with markers, but it could be used as digital drawing. So what does it look like? It looks like a black and white illustration of a man at the foot of the bed with like the feet touching the headboard, and the brain is, to use a little bit of anatomy terms, is a superior view transverse cut of the head with the brain exposed, leaving like a gummy viscous dripping out, not red blood with it, but colors of with eggplant purple, magenta, chartreuse, pink, orange, blue, salmon, sky blue, sea green, dark gray, yellow, and at the bottom of the goo pile is objects like trees, city buildings, tires, and a lock and chain, to name a few. Now, with its arms and hands extended outwards like a crucifix, the left hand is clutching a cloth and the other hand limp. And above its head is like a purple irregular polygon with its simple light bulb drawing. Now, above the head is a broken ceiling fan with a broken glass light. Also, the ground is almost like an apron of a stage, slightly semicircle, with wooden planks all coming together with a white background. Now, it may seem like a lot, but I think that it shows the creative process. Seeing the person at the foot of the bed, the pouring out, and all sorts of different objects coming together. Now, this is one of my favorite albums. Now, it's lyrically and musically so poignant, so like loud, so interesting. Now, this band, 21 Pilots, it was released independently in like December 29th, 2009, and it was the first official studio album of 21 Pilots. Right. And at the time of release, the band was composed of current frontman Tyler Joseph and his high school friends Nick Thomas and Chris Salee. Now, it was comprised of 14 songs, and the album's duration was actually 62 minutes long, which is a lot.
Yeah.
The personal of members of what instrument they put in. So, like Tyler, he did the vocals, he did the organs, like the computer, the piano system that you can sound like a organ, steel guitar, which I didn't know that he could play, or maybe it was a keyboard thing. He did the programming, the synthesizers, the bass, and the production of it. But the other members did the guitars, the bass programming, the backing vocals. and then the Chris Salih did the drums, and then the percussion. So they actually recorded this in the basement of basically Tyler's house when he was 21 years old. And while Tyler Joseph, it was about him pretty much, but the topics can be relatable and heavy, such as struggling with sin, doubting God, and mental health.
Wow.
Well, there are like lighter songs in the song.
Yeah.
For example, one of the songs is called Johnny Boy, which Tyler wrote to encourage his father. As described in a 2020 interview with his father, Tyler wrote Johnny Boy in honor to encourage his father after they had been fired from a job. And since it was 2009 and the financial crisis, what I find fascinating is that the lyrical analysis uses the phrase Johnny Boy. And Tyler uses Johnny Boy as a general anonymity pseudonym, for example, Jane Doe or John Doe,
right,
to discuss the societal disapproval that anyone can experience, especially financially, like the Great Recession.
Yeah.
So what I like about me being interested in this job that you put out was I like how music can come together, art can come together, and the whole how music forms us together.
Yeah, it's really cool, especially how much like the right set of words and stuff like that can really speak levels to somebody, not just the person writing it, but the person hearing it, depending on what they're going through in that specific point of time. Like it could make all the difference.
So I want to talk about my favorite songs.
Yeah, go right ahead. I
Its
want
analysis because I've always like been a fan of it. So they had this one song called "The Pantaloon," and people are like, it's about pants. So in the song, a pantaloon, which is a foolish pantomime character, but the song lyrics, if I analyze it enough, suggest that time will make fools out of us all because it talks about time a lot.
Right.
And it could suggest that the pantaloon is a personification of a disease like dementia.
Oh, okay.
And there's another song called Implicit Demand for Proof. So while the first song of the album begins with like a melodic, slow piano piece, but the song quickly switches to a lyrical piece that details like Tyler's struggle with his religious doubt, hence the name Implicit Demand for Proof, where he's asking for proof.
Right.
Or the theme of what the group would continue to explore further throughout their career.
Right.
So Tyler goes out throughout the Bay God or implicit demands proof of his existence, but he wants to know his existence, but questions his power, even if it means God will strike Tyler down with the process of blasphemy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Now, okay, so now I've listened to the album yesterday again, and 21 Pilots isn't my main thing of music, but I kind of like what they're doing, especially lyrically. So now I'm going to have to go back and listen to not just the whole album, but also these songs specifically and look for that deeper meaning. Because like, it's one thing to hear a song and it's another thing to hear a song again and actually understand what it's about.
Yes.
So that's really cool. I'm definitely going to have to do a like hour sit down, have like Genius or something pulled up with a track by track lyrics and like go line by line analyzing it. Because as a writer, I want to know how to do something like that, to write something so deep, but with the meaning so obviously there.
Yes.
My album is nowhere near that deep. It doesn't have any of those like personal messages and stuff. It's straight up like just for fun. It is Ice Nine's The Silver Scream, which came out in 2018. So Ice Nine is a metalcore band with very horror themed lyrics and stuff. But for this album and the album previous to it, Every Trick in the Book, they've decided to go all out, and instead of being inspired by horror movies and books and all that, they decided to straight up just pay homage to their favorite books, favorite horror movies. So Every Trick in the Book, which came out 2017, I don't remember the correct year, but it came out before Silver Scream, and it was about 9 or so tracks of books. So Animal Farm, Carrie, Diary of Anne Frank, and many more that I can't remember off the top of my head, but things like that. Community of the Curse being The Exorcist, stuff like that. And so they just straight up paid homage to those. And they did the same thing with this album and their album coming out this year, The Silver Scream 2. And for this album, I really love the cover art because number one, it's in the style, that drawing style that pays homage to those horror movies like what it's called, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. It's got that hand-drawn style of those old low-budget movies where, as opposed to today, everything's photoshopped, everything's a picture of the actors, slightly altered in some way by a digital program. These were like hand-painted actual artworks. And this album pays homage to that by being in that same general style. And it was also created by Mike Cortada, who was also known for doing the album on Pierce the Veil's, the album art on Pierce the Veil's Misadventures and A Data Remembers Bad Vibration. Both of them are also pretty cool albums that I really like, especially Data Remembers. I don't know. I just like, there's something about them. Have you heard either of those?
I think I've heard of A Day to Remember.
Yeah. They're pretty good. I believe they've been played on the station a few times, which is pretty cool. But yeah, like I had no idea that, like, I mean, if you look at them, you can recognize the stylistic choices of each of them, and you can be like, yeah, definitely the same person. But it's really cool to like not only know who did it, but also know what else this person did and recognize some of that art. So for the front album, the cover, it's set up completely like a movie poster. It's got the title, the tagline, the MPAA rating system, all that. And so it depicts a movie theater. It's in the view from the back. You're looking at the screen and everybody else watching the movie. All the other people are crowded around the screen. It looks like a small theater because they only have so much room to fit the artwork on. So it looks like a relatively small theater. But what it is, it's about a couple rows of people all like, reacting as you would a normal horror movie, being scared. They've got hands up and stuff. There's popcorn and stuff. And then the screen itself is depicting nothing. It's a blank screen, but what it is depicting is a hand coming out holding a Michael Myers-esque knife, as you would see in slasher movies. And in this reflection of the knife, this is a giant hand, like much bigger than the people in the theater, like it's a 3D movie. And then in the reflection of this knife is the reflection of a scared person, kind of representing that like final girl scene in so many of the slasher movies. At the top of the album is the band's name, Ice Nine. And then right below that is the title of the album, Silver Screen, once again, made to look like it's an actual movie poster. And right above the band name is the tagline. The tagline obviously being on many movie posters to kind of get the audience hooked in. The tagline is, they say it's hard getting into the movies, ... try getting out. Not my favorite tagline. I think they probably could have done something a little better maybe, because the next one, Silver Scream 2, that they're doing in later this year, October, I believe. It's Silver Scream 2, Welcome to Horrorwood. Okay name, but the tagline is, you'll never make it in this town, which I think is a far better headline than this one. Just my personal opinion. And then, of course, at the bottom, there is an MPAA rating, R, PG-13, all that kind of stuff. You would recognize them if you saw them. But this one is rated IX, the Roman numeral for 9, and for psychos only, psychos being the name of their fans. So it's just a cool bit of a different way to do an album, because I've never seen an album before stylized after movie posters, including taglines, ratings, and all that stuff. So that's why I chose this one to be the first album. And, like, I can go on all day talking about album art, and there will be more episodes of this, mark my words. But the album itself is not as deep as you explained, Ian. It's not all that whole symbolism stuff. It's a reference to horror movies, and there's 14 tracks, all of different horror movies. And this is one of the great things about the album is the names of the tracks are like puns or references to the movies. So you've got things like The American Nightmare, Nightmare on Elm Street, Thank God It's Friday, Friday the 13th, The Jig Is Up, Saw, obviously. It Is the End being it, obviously. And that's just to name a few. And the songs themselves are so chock full of references and clever wording. The lead singer himself, Spencer Carness, said in an interview he wanted every lyric to be quote unquote tattooable, saying, quote, "We really went over every single phrase and made sure everything was either an interesting metaphor, had some kind of clever turn of phrase or a pun or an alliteration," end quote. And, you know, I love those. I love references and I love wordplay. So like I can, and I probably will go on forever in another episode about all the wordplay this band uses in their last 3 albums. But things like in The American Nightmare, one of the verses is "Craven my revenge from the shallow grave," a reference to Wes Craven, the creator of what's his face, Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy Krueger. "Enjoy your sleigh," pretty much the entire chorus. "Enjoy your sleigh," for reference, is the song based off of The Shining by Stanley Kubrick, loosely based off of the book by Stephen King. And the chorus goes, "Welcome to your last resort. Don't overlook the past." 2 right there. And then in the next line, "If you need help finding peace of mind, don't hesitate to axe," spelled A-X-E, reference to Jack Torrance and the "Here's Johnny" line and stuff like that. And I can go on forever talking about these lyrics because I love them so much. They're so clever. And once the new album comes out in like mid-October, I'm going to, like he said, go through it with a fine-tooth comb and pick out all the references and stuff, because it's a little harder if you haven't seen the movies. Obviously, have you seen any horror movies, old school horror movies, stuff like that?
I've seen, not totally, but there is this one YouTube channel that like gives these like the whole like summary of it and like talks about the statistics of the death that happened.
Dead Meat.
Yeah, Dead Meat.
Yes, I love those.
I watched all Friday the 13th.
Yeah,
I watched Nightmare on Elm Street. I didn't like Nightmare on Elm Street. It was a little bit. I didn't like the idea of it. The whole he'll kill you when you're sleeping. Yeah,
it's terrified me. I've never seen that movie. That one I haven't seen yet. I've seen Friday the 13th, the first one, but the idea of Nightmare on Elm Street terrified me as a kid. I don't know if it still would. Like, I don't know if I saw the movie, if I'd still be scared, but oh boy, that I probably didn't sleep for a good day or two. Because, like, despite how scared I am, my body will just shut down because it needs sleep regardless. But yeah, like, obviously, it's a horrifying concept.
And my favorite of the 2 that is listed is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah. I love that movie.
Yeah,
especially the second one.
I've only seen the first one so far. But
the remakes are okay, but the camera angles of how it's shot in the original one is so different. But another one with the song that you were talking about, "The Jig Is Up," it's about Saw.
Right.
Obviously, it connects to Jigsaw, which is one of the characters in Saw.
Yeah, the main antagonist.
Yeah. So, well, it could be a protagonist if you listen to the story.
Very true.
So,
okay, fair enough.
The whole Saw movies, the traps that he puts up is like so smart. But now with the new movie, what was it called? Spiral?
It was called Spiral.
It was different. It was a different types of death. But the whole with my favorite, I think it was in the 3D one where the guy who was lying about how he was in the whole Jigsaw traps. He was like,
yes,
stories. And then the last trap where he was trying to save his wife, he ran out of time, but he had to replicate how he got trapped, and he had to put like the hooks in his pec muscles.
Right. He said right.
And he failed, and his wife turned into a brazen bull, and the whole, you could see her skin melting.
Oh yeah,
it was just the great cinematic.
It's gruesome, and like I want to stay away from like too many details because it's a graphic series. It's not for everyone, so like very big content warning if you ever had any interest in seeing Saw. I've never seen them, but I've seen like the traps and stuff, because that kind of that like varied consistency, as I call it, is very interesting to me. Like seeing how they do the same idea in different ways, that being the traps, it gets gruesome. So like fair warning, if you ever want to see stuff like that.
And another tip, watch it all the way through. Don't go back and forth with episodes, because it's very story based, very timeline based. You have to think about it. There's whole twists and turns in the end.
It's almost like a horror movie soap opera.
I was just thinking soap opera.
There's like 7 to 9 movies, something like that. Yeah. But sorry, go ahead.
So I remember the one movie that always scared me as a kid was Saw 3D, because there was this one death in the beginning where it was for me, in my eyes, it looked so real. But looking back on it, I was like, this doesn't look real. They're just using like whatever food that they can make that can look into intestines.
Yeah. That's a whole nother topic, like the art behind movies, especially like Saw, Final Destination, how they use most of the time practical effects to achieve the goals. And like, this could be the topic of the episode, but like the CG kind of ruins that. As an animator, I really shouldn't be saying that, but like nothing beats practical effects in movies.
Mm-hmm. But there's been 9 movies so far.
Oh my goodness.
There's Saw with the bathroom scene, and then there's Saw 2 with the house.
Yeah.
And then there's Saw 3. I forgot what that was about. I think it was about the dad that he wants revenge for the kid's murder or something.
Something like that, yeah.
And then Saw 5, and then Saw 4, and then Saw 5, and then Saw 6, and then Saw 3D, the final chapter, and then there's Jigsaw, and then there's Spiral. The second to last one, the Jigsaw, it was very twisty turny. It was a lot of twists. There's in the end where it turns out all this stuff has been happening. It's not the true story.
Yeah. I mean, it's an old series, and like, but we don't want to give spoilers without warning. But I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen the Dead Meat videos on that, because it's just sometimes it's easier to watch a summary of the movie and sit through a 9 movie series when you don't have that much time.
You're like, should I look at the Wikipedia for the synopsis of the plot? I'll just do that.
Because Saw has, so I'm gonna say Saw and Final Destination are probably those 2, like in that category of horror movies, that have scared me the longest, because just like the idea of them, I guess they're so grounded in reality. Almost like Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. They're a little more fantastical, and also they're older, so they don't look as dark and all that kind of stuff, because they were on a lower budget to begin with, and like it just doesn't, let's just say the quality of like cameras and audio doesn't hold up, obviously, so you have that bit of disconnect in the movies. But like Saw and Final Destination, they're so much more, they've got better technology, so it looks a little bit more real until they throw in CG, obviously. But stuff like that.
And like the whole, how it's looks so real, because what the people have done that make it so what they have gotten to put in the traps, like they've done a certain fraud or something, right? And meanwhile, I'm like thinking in my bed, like childhood home, like, oh my god, I did this small thing in elementary school, am I going to be put into a saw trap? But
that's always been my thing. Like, I'm sure there's something I forgot about in my life that was less than honorable, for lack of a better word. And I don't think I have what it takes to survive one of these things.
Oh no.
I guess it depends. No, I don't think I could survive any of them.
No.
Especially because I know later in the movies they start becoming rigged, and there's actually no way to get out of them.
Yeah.
Which is, I get it's part of the story, but like, come on, you got to be fair.
It's in the movie Jigsaw, it's like, oh, come on, like that's obviously you're gonna die on that.
But it's like a whole, now I just started thinking about this. It's like a whole Batman Bruce Wayne thing. Like, I mean, I know they caught the guy eventually in like movie 2 or something, but like, it's got to be like an immediate thing. Like, okay, who has all this money to fund all this? Let's narrow it down right now. Because like, how many people, like, let's take Batman, for example. How many people have those kind of funds other than Bruce Wayne in Gotham to like fund the vehicles, the equipment, the suit, all that kind of stuff? So
Jeff Bezos.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I guess. Yeah, but see, that's my point. You narrow it down immediately to, okay, who might have a realistic amount of money to do this? And immediately we came up with one person who it could be.
Well,
not saying it is, obviously, because it's
he
fictional.
Could be Batman. He could be the new version of the Batman.
Based on the show, okay, so I saw this meme, and it's like based on the shows that Amazon Prime is putting out, he's more closer to Lex Luthor.
Well,
because like The Boys and Invincible have this like theme of like don't trust the Superman.
And,
so
well, Steve Jobs is now Bane, but it'll be a whole canon, the whole how famous people alive and dead have become supervillains.
Right. Yeah, that's very true. And it's weird now. I mean, I'm looking at myself right now. We all look like Bane with these masks on. But yeah, like it's crazy. And going back to the album, the back of the album continues that film thing. It's set up like an old school theater. I've never been to one of these. I don't know if you have, but it's the one where the ticket booth is out front. It's like one ticket booth instead of like, you know, buying online or the counter inside. And then it has the track listing on an old film marquee outside that like blaringly told you what movies were playing. And unfortunately, I don't own the album, a physical copy, because in today's...
How dare you?
I know. I really want to start collecting albums, but I'm very bad at it. But yeah, like the back of it, I've never seen because it doesn't give you the back on like streaming services. And so like when I saw it, I'm like, oh, wait, that's actually really cool. I like how they continued the theme with it. And yeah, I mean, I have to say, I'm pretty much obligated at this point right now to say that I'm excited for Silver Scream 2 to come out. It's like literally a month away at this point. And actually, if I remember correctly, I think they just started promoting a new song that's coming out in like 2 days, a new single of it. I don't know what it's going to be about because obviously you don't know you can only guess by the track listings they have. And I'll probably come back with the Silver Scream 2 for this Cover the Tracks thing later. But so far they've released 2 singles based on American Psycho and Child's Play, the series. And Child's Play is Assault and Batteries.
Yeah.
Pretty cool name. But I think the undisputed best name they've done so far for a song is the American Psycho one, Hip to Be Scared. Obviously a reference to the scene in the movie where Patrick Bateman, played by Christian Bale, is talking to Paul Allen, whose actor name I don't know, but he did the whole monologue about Huey Lewis in the News, finally closing with Hip to Be a Square playing in the background while he's like monologuing to Paul. And Hip to Be Scared obviously is not too much of a reference to the movie. It's like if you didn't know American Psycho, you would never make that connection because it's a great scene in cinematic history, but at the same time, there's a bit of a disconnect between the movie and that. So if you haven't seen American Psycho, the reference might not make sense to you, but someone who has, me as somebody who has, is one of the greatest titles ever. And it was also the first single they released to announce the album. So it might have a bit of bias knowing that this album was coming out because of this. So,
and I was looking at the track listing for the second part, and there's some puns in it. And some people were speculating of what kind of movies it's going to be
for the second album.
Yeah. There's one song called "A Rash Decision," and that relates to the movie Cabin Fever, which is basically like a flesh-eating virus infects like 5 teenagers while they're in a cabin. And
yikes!
One of them realizes that don't touch the water because if the infection touched the water and they drink it, they die.
Oh, okay. So I've never seen that one. See, what I was thinking of, like Cabin Fever and Cabin in the Woods, probably because their namesake is so similar. Like
I love Cabin in the Woods.
I confused them. I haven't seen either, to be honest. But like I thought it was going to be, when you say Cabin Fever, I thought that one, but no, 2 different things. But yeah, like there's a whole bunch of them that are like some are easier to see than others. Like this is a bit more of a cult classic type movie, but the one called Take Your Pick is most likely a reference to My Bloody Valentine, which was I believe a Canadian horror movie back before the 2000s, which of course, as all slasher movies do, got a remake. Whoop-de-doo. Yeah. And then the one they're putting out soon is called Rainy Day, which there has been some small debate over whether it's Resident Evil or Poltergeist, because they put up a video on their Instagram and it's a red and white umbrella, very reminiscent of the Umbrella logo or Umbrella Corps.
Umbrella Corporation.
Yeah, from Resident Evil. And I'm kind of more inclined to go with it's a Poltergeist song, only because I believe Resident Evil was a game first before a movie, right?
Well, I don't know.
I'm like 90% certain it was, and obviously we have the internet to look that up. So if it was a game first, then obviously, it wouldn't make sense in an album about horror movies. Yeah, so the Resident Evil, at least according to Google, the first game's release date was March 22nd, 1996. And if I look up the movie release date, I guarantee you it's going to be after that. Yeah, 2002, or at least the first Resident Evil movie. I believe there were several. But so that's why I personally believe it's more Poltergeist, because it's more of a classic horror movie than Resident Evil. And, video game movies don't have the greatest reputation for being good. So obviously, like, I'm not one to say what Spencer enjoys in his movies, saying like, oh, how can you do this if it was a bad movie? He might love the movie. I could be wrong, but to me, it would make less sense to do it, to make a song that pays homage to a video game movie that wasn't well received.
Yeah.
As opposed to Poltergeist, which was pretty well received when it came out. But I know nothing about horror movies as much as he does, so I can only speculate right now.
One of the songs, Worst Vacation, and you with the 2 dots on above it, I think it's going to be Human Centipede.
Human Centipede, or from what I saw, Hostel?
No, because it's based in Slovakia.
Oh, okay.
And it can't be Midsommar because it's based in Sweden.
Right.
But in the Human Centipede, which scared me as a kid.
I can imagine, yeah. It doesn't,
because no one wants to be imagining eating each other's poop.
Yeah, okay, yeah. No, definitely not. But yeah, that being said, like
and the shower scene, the song in the shower scene based on Psycho.
Definitely. Yeah, that's one of those obvious ones. But like, I don't have the exact quote, but I believe they said they're not doing movies after a certain year.
Yeah.
So like they're focusing all on like the more old school classic ones.
Yeah.
So even if Midsommar was, I guess the way it's spelled would be Germany, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So even if Midsommar was Germany, I think they still would exclude it because it's rather new. And I think, I can't say for certain until the album comes out, but I think that's why you're not going to see something like The Conjuring having a song about it, because it's too new and doesn't have that status, that I don't want to say legendary, but I will for lack of a better word. It doesn't have that kind of status that all these old school ones have.
Mm-hmm. Here's a little question. If you made a song that was like an homage to a certain horror movie, what would it be called and what movie would it relate to?
Okay, so I actually did try to do one because I was obsessed with what they were doing, and I kind of tried to do something like it. So I kind of tried to do a Shining one. Obviously, it's already been done, but I tried to do a Shining one. It was called Once Bitten, Twice Shine, a reference to, I want to say it's the Rolling Stones song. I know it by Great White, called Once Bitten, Twice Shy. And it's also, I'm going to look it up because I don't know off the top of my head, but I believe it's also a turn of phrase.
I've never heard of that phrase, but I would do something like The Invisible Man.
Ooh, that's a good one.
But like, I think one of the deaths is like a lot of people and it like involves a train. So I do like some like pun involving a train.
Or another one you do for The Invisible Man is you literally just leave the title blank. So there's no title at all.
Or like insert title here or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Or just like
2 brackets with nothing in the middle.
Quotation invisible.
Yeah, exactly. And then, okay, so yeah, looking it up, Once Bitten, Twice Shy used to mean that a person who has failed or been hurt when trying to do something is careful or fearful about doing it again. So in that sense, I don't really think it fits with The Shining, but I wasn't really looking at that. I was looking at it because Once Bitten, Twice Shy works as just like a pun title, but it doesn't fit really the definition of the phrase. So maybe it's better that they did it for me, and I probably shouldn't do something like that. Although I was having an idea to do something like this where it was an encompassing like all the classic horror movies into one song and called it Slash Up as a mashup.
Yeah.
And, you know, I kind of wanted, so that came because my Halloween costume in 2019 was essentially that. It was the Jason mask, Michael Myers suit, Freddy hat, Pennywise makeup, all that kind of stuff. And I didn't have a good name for it. So when I went to a costume contest, the DJ guy is not going to say, oh, this is Michael Voorhees, the nightmare clown that comes around every 27 years. I believe those were the exact wordings I said to the guys, like, yeah, I'm not going to remember that. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, oh, wait, Slash Up would have been a much better name. So I want to try and do that again this year, but I want to expand on that costume.
That reminds me of when I was doing, I think it was middle school, and I dressed up as one of the characters that Tyler Joseph was impersonating or putting into a character as he called it Blurryface, which called it his insecurities. Right. So he put paint or whatever thing on his hands and his neck to showing like strangulation or the ability to breathe and what he makes with his hands. And I dressed like that. I had all the 21 Pilots shirt. I put the backpack on. I had my hands. I had my hands done and my neck black. And we were doing like a kind of like a costume contest where the class, because I know my middle school had a dance class and you would like learn stupid dances. It was so cringy.
Yeah, I believe I've done that too.
And they would did the dance they would practice all marking period to do Thriller. Oh, okay. So and afterwards they would have a costume contest. Oh, so cool. I went up, I stood in line waiting for the stairs to go up, and the woman immediately went, hobo. And I went, oh
no. You gotta at least ask if you don't know.
Yeah.
Oh my, that's not fair.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure it was a really cool costume too.
Yeah. But only if people knew about it.
Yeah, exactly. Which I guess if it's not something in the face of pop culture, nobody's really gonna get it.
Yeah.
I mean, the person who won the costume contest, when I did it, or one of the categories in costume contest, was Joker. So they dressed up as Jojo Siwa with Joker makeup on. I thought it was clever. I definitely think it deserved to win. But, you know, that's cool. That's something different almost, per se. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. But, so like, what else? So the Blurryface album, which I believe that's the one with the circles, right?
Yeah, that's the one with the circles.
That one I like because there's a few songs off that album that are really good. Heathens is completely a single, right? It's not on any album.
They did one song from the Suicide Squad soundtrack. Right.
Oh, okay. So Heathens was on that one, not Blurryface.
Yeah,
but still, Stressed Out is pretty good.
Overplayed.
Yeah. Oh, definitely that. But like that Ride, they're just songs that I kind of enjoy. But like I need to go back and lyrically analyze all of 21 Pilots, like especially their first album, because based on what you said, it's not only good study material for me who wants to be a lyricist like that, but like, you know, can also provide me with more songs to listen to.
And 21 Pilots just came out with another album called Scaled and Icy, which if you go from the second to last recent album called Trench, there's a whole storyline. You have to learn about it. And it's like basically a movie that you have to do.
Oh, so kind of like concept album, rock opera, that stuff where it tells a story.
Yeah.
Track one to track.
It was like a fictional story where they're talking about it, but Scaled and Icy, they just came out with it like a couple days ago. They just did their first tour in, I think, Milwaukee.
Oh, cool.
And so the album cover is also crazy. Also, it's basically like a blue dragon with a pink background.
Yeah, I saw that. It's another one of those like hand drawn things too.
Yeah.
Or it might be digital art, but it's got that hand drawn. It's not a photo, is what I'm trying to say.
It can be easily replicated with the 9 circles and Blurryface.
Right.
But there's one album that I also put down to analyze. They had this album called Vessel in 2013.
Right.
So it's just a photograph of the 2 members with Tyler Joseph and Josh Dunn. Josh Dunn playing the drums and Tyler Joseph he could do pretty much any instrument now.
Okay. That's cool.
So it's basically just their grandfathers and just standing.
Oh, really?
It's if you look up the photo of it, it's just their grandfathers. But the name Vessel, because the album is called Vessel, it was explained in an interview saying, like, he said, quote, "I have a body, I have a life, I have a voice." And that's kind of like a vessel that really holds something. Now that the vessel's not important, but my body's not that important. My voice isn't that important. The songs aren't that important. My life isn't that important. But the important thing is what's inside that vessel. And right now I have a message, and that's something to say. And it's saying the most important thing inside that vessel. Now, both their grandfathers sadly passed away, with the one pictured on the left being Josh's grandfather. It died after the album's release in 2013. And Tyler's grandfather in the right passing away in 2018. And the connection, for the song Trench, which was I think released in 2018, Tyler released a song after him called Legend. And it was written about Tyler's grandpa's memorial. Like, the last lyrics was like, "In the day that it happened, I recorded this last bit to let you know that I'll have a lunch with you again sometime," which is really sad.
Yeah.
I once like put it together. I was like almost crying in like the lobby of my high school.
Yeah.
But the another album that they did was called Regional at Best, I think in 2012 or 2011, where it also uses photography of like a childhood baseball game that I think Tyler was in. I think it was like the pitcher or the catcher or whatever. I don't know. Baseball. Okay. But it's just so simple, but so could be thought of in your head once you like seen it so many times. You're like, oh, this is what it looks like, and I know who it is. But that's what album covers actually have to do. They have to make you memorize it.
Yeah.
It can't be too complicated.
Yeah, that's something major we were talking about when I did the generalized episode of this a few months ago. Like, they have to be memorable. So you got to, like, the ones where it's literally just the artist's face over and over and over again, which you see a lot in more mainstream pop music. It's like, none of them are like great and memorable. Like, obviously you can say the same thing, like, oh, the Beatles just put out a blank canvas and did that. But like, for some reason that is memorable. That is iconic. And everything today doesn't feel like it'll, obviously we can only tell with time, but it's not there. It doesn't seem to have that kind of lasting power.
Yeah. With Pink Floyd's, what was it called? The Triangle, the Rainbow. It's with
Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't like it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, but I can see how it's not like everybody's favorite piece of artwork.
And what gravitated with you asking for the show about this was I actually did an art project about this.
Oh, cool.
I was in AP Arts, and my focus was album cover art. But I was like, oh, I'll do since I'm more gifted 3D art, because so I decided to do like dressmaking with the whole relating a dress to an album cover art. But I was like, no, I can't do that. I have little time.
Right.
So I was like, oh, okay, I'll just do like 2D basically versions, but sew it together. So like kind of like a tapestry of sorts.
Right.
And I was like, no. And then like the last quarter of the last fourth of the marking period, I was like, I'll just do illustration. So one of the projects that I finished was I made like a dress that relates to the Dark Side of the Moon.
Oh, okay.
So it's basically like the bottom part of the dress is just like a rainbow coming out, and like in the chest area is just a triangle.
That's smart.
Yeah. So
that's cool.
And I sadly I didn't enter it in the College Board for APR because I just felt like I just didn't feel confident in that, and everyone else was like the whole artist thing, like they're gonna leave comments on it, and I don't want like negative comments based on my work.
Right,
So,
that's true.
yeah.
But I'd love to actually like see that, because that is cool, because it works out in forms of basic shape. It works out like in a dress format.
Yeah,
that's really cool. I mean, I never thought of anything like that, and so talking to you today, it's so amazing to see how like there's so much more going on an album cover. Well, most album covers underneath the surface.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure if I looked more into it, there'd be a reason why they chose to style it after this, obviously, besides the homage to all the horror movies, and like why they've taken a bit of a drastic turn between this one and the next one coming out, which is more, so it looks more like a modern horror movie. It's still got that styling, but it's got that thing where it's like, oh, the antagonist's face is in the background, looming over like the main characters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So this one so I should probably preface this. We're running low on time, but the singles that came out with the first Silver Scream all encompassed an overarching story of like a crime thriller.
Yeah.
And so the antagonist of this crime thriller was, it almost looks like a Slipknot mask, where it's just, and I'll explain it. I forget. It's like a very rough mask with an I and an X over the eyes for the 9. And so it's that image in the background of like a California street with the Hollywood/Horrorwood sign in the background, a movie theater to the right, and then the actual figure of the main antagonist of this crime thriller standing in the foreground, super tiny. And, it's pretty cool, but it's very different. It's a very different type of album from the first one.
I did not see the IX after the I. I'm looking up a picture of it.
Yeah.
I totally didn't see that now.
It takes I didn't know, I probably wouldn't have noticed it on the album cover, but the music video for Hip to Be Scared had it superimposed over the main singer's face for like a split second, and you can more clearly see it as opposed to in the album cover, because also, like the band name, the album name, all that kind of stuff gets in the way of some of the design choices in albums. So you got to like really pick at it with a fine tooth comb.
What does Ice Nine Kills mean? Because that sounds like a Mad Libs game.
It almost does. I forget exactly what it is. It's like a fictional element in a book series. And so they just adopted that. Like, what, if you look at it, what do any band names mean? But like, yeah. So I remember reading it on Wikipedia. It's like some kind of fictional element in some kind of sci-fi series. But, well, I'm sorry, not Ice Nine is the fictional element. And then they just added that at the end, probably to get the acronym Inc.
Yeah.
Because other than it would just be weird. And also I've noticed a lot of metalcore bands are that like three word kind of thing.
Yeah.
I can't think of any. Ice Nine Kills, like I said, Motionless in White.
Yeah.
And then whatever other metalcore bands there are. But Fit for a King, which is technically 4, but you know what I mean.
The 21 Pilots are like, oh, where's the other 19? Since there's other 2 members, that like really annoys me.
Yeah.
But it's about an Arthur Miller play.
Oh, okay.
So it's basically an Arthur Miller play. It's All My Sons. I can't go into detail about it because you're gonna have to watch it or learn about it or whatever.
Right.
But it turns out to be like it has to include 21 Pilots in it.
That's really
one
cool.
of my favorite plays.
Yeah, I love
so smart.
Yeah, I love learning about band names and the reasoning behind them. But as we wrap up the show, that is going to be it for the first episode of King's Chaos Season 2, technically episode 26. I don't know how I'm going to number these yet. But yeah, that does it. Thank you so much for joining me. This was awesome.
I'd like to come again.
Yeah, no, totally. I'll have you again because like, the album you talked about.
Yeah.
Like it's one thing to go like, oh, I like the album. It looks cool. There's this, and that. But you're like, this is what it probably means. This is the lyrical content. Like you did your research and I appreciate that so much. Thank you. And like there are so many albums to talk about. This is going to go on forever. I don't probably in between different shows because like King's Chaos, I don't want to tie myself down to one thing, but Cover Your Tracks will be back. That is a promise. And in the meantime, I have been your host, Kyle Pepitone, and my guests,
Ian Hagen.
Thank you all so much for listening. And it is good to be